In the tournament finals of Road to UFC with our fighting handbook, make sure you check out those videos. We have lightweights King of Lions Anshul Jubli taking on Indonesia's Jeka Saragih. And Matt, when I look at the season, Anshul Jubli is the runaway favorite of the season in terms of the fans. Everybody seems to absolutely love him. They think he's going to win this fight. They're going to criticize us if we don't pick him in this one. But I know there's a lot of fan support from the guy who was able to make his mark over with Matrix Fight Series. And for Anshul Jubli, you look at his fighting style, very, very well-rounded. You might look at him and you think, geez, this guy's 6 feet tall. He's a lightweight. He's at a reach discrepancy against most guys because he only got a 69-inch reach. But he makes the most of it with car crash striking, pretty decent offensive wrestling, and he can turn a lot of his opponent's takedown attempts into his own takedowns with his upper body strength, and then he can really, really wear on them when it's on the ground. And for Anshul Jubli, if you look at the way that he does grapple once it hits the mat, he's not like a Gary Tonin. He's not like a Ryan Hall. He's not going to go out there and try and snatch up your legs. He's going to go out there, try and go for arm triangles. He's going to try and maneuver his way to get your arms to get in like a Kimura lock or maybe it's an Americana. But for Jubli, what I found when I went back and I watched a lot of the tape, I listened to his interviews, he's 6-0 as a pro. He also claims to be 13-0 as an amateur. So a win here would be his 20th straight MMA win. And I listened to an interview he did a while ago with JHK where he said his base in MMA, it's street fighting. It's like he's Kimbo Slice. So Anshul Jubli representing Soma Fight Club in Indonesia. So Indonesia will actually have an opportunity to say, hey, we've got a UFC fighter. No matter who wins this, Saragih is also, he's from Indonesia. And if you look at it for Saragih, he gets a couple of big-time wins over on Road to UFC. He beats Poan Man, a man out of India. And in that fight, absolutely decimates him with a spinning back fist. And Poan Man was a guy that fought at welterweight and then dropped down to lightweight for the tournament. So a bigger fighter than Saragih, which we'll say in about every single one of Saragih's fights. He's only 5'8".
Not a big lightweight at all, yeah.
His big win over One Bin Ki, straight right, knocks him out in that one too. So 2 really nice knockout wins for Saragih. But if you consider it, yeah, even going back and looking at his fights on the regional scene, he typically weighs in around 153. So he's not a giant.
He's going to be a featherweight in the UFC. Not to cut you off, but this is going to be one of those cases where I think the opportunity dictated his weight class more than where he's going to be. Because
his whole career has been lightweight.
I understand, but there's fighters who outside the UFC, they can get away with fighting other guys who don't cut a tremendous amount of weight. Then they get to the UFC, realize everybody's cutting a tremendous amount of weight, then they have to make the change. Because Saragih isn't built like a Michael Chandler. Like, Chandler's a guy who's about 5'8", 5'9", not going to tower over a lot of lightweights, but you look at him and you understand how he fits into the division. Very stocky figure. Saragih is going to run into those issues with the physicality of some of those other lightweight contenders. Now, it will be interesting to see how he deals with it in this matchup against Jubli, but because what I really like about him is he's got a good jab from the outside. I know he doesn't have the longest arms in the world, you're right. He is kind of a unique build that way. But on the outside, he can throw a lot of volume at a guy. And I do appreciate that from a younger fighter because a lot of fighters have a lot of talent, but they don't have the volume to go along with that talent. And that's why they can lose fights early on in their career. They're just not active enough. They can get behind in the scorecard, especially with takedowns and whatnot. With Jubli, I do like the fact that he can go out there and use the jab when he has to. Now, he does enjoy those car crash strikes. It's one of those things where he's technical until he gets hit a couple of times. Then he'll start to go into a brawl. But I do like the technical version of him. Although we don't always see it, I do think there's a fighter in there that can string some success together with that type of a style. It'll just be very interesting to see if he uses that kind of a style in this match.
Again, the fans love Jubli, but we'll kind of criticize it a little bit and then we'll bring it back. So
I thought he looked good in the last fight, even though it was a split.
He fought Kyung-Po Kim over in the semifinals of Road to UFC. He didn't fight in the quarterfinals because his opponent, Patrick Usami, wasn't able to make the weight. So he fights Kyung-Po Kim, and in that first round, he drops him with the left hook. He had really good leg kicks. He could utilize some of that. Again, offensive and defensive wrestling. I think his wrestling, it'll get him caught against really good lightweights, but against very poor lightweights, it'll definitely be a way to win. But the level of competition that Jubli fought on the regional scene with Matrix Fight Night, because that's where all of his pro fights were, was bad. It was really, really bad. Like, he fought Mohammed Mahmoudyan, and in that fight, Mahmoudyan looked like he jumped up a weight class. He didn't look like he was in shape. He looked really tired. He went for his own takedown, and then Jubli just trips him, lands on top, and beat him quite easily. His fight against Serkant Sekar, who was 5-4, It's a decision win on his record. He beat him pillar to post in every single aspect of the fight. He knocks out Rajith Chadran. Like,
can we say this, though? When you're 2-0, you should probably fight other guys who are in that 2-0. I know he hasn't fought the highest level of prospects, but that's the thing. If you just look at a split decision win his last time out, you're probably not that impressed. But I thought Kim was a really talented fighter. Like, that was a good fight between those two guys. And I thought Jubli was able to win the first round. I thought he was able to win the second. The third, it got a little hairy for him. But I thought that was a good fight between those two guys. That was an interesting one leading up to this matchup.
That's kind of the crazy thing. So for Jubli in the one fight that was on road to UFC, definitely won the first round. Had the knockdown. Round 2 and round 3. 2 of the judges scored round 2 for Kim, and 2 of the judges scored round 3 for Kim. But that doesn't always work out because it ended up a split decision and you had some dissenting rounds. But if you consider for Jeka Saragih representing Indonesia, even before the fight that he had against Pohon Man, he lost 2 family members. Like, they just passed away very quickly before that one. His fight against Won Bin Ki, he looked really good in that one. He gets that knockout win. So I love the power that he has. Obviously, we know that only 1 of his 15 fights has gone to decision. That was a fight earlier on in 2022. He hasn't lost a fight since 2020. He didn't fight the greatest level of competition on the regional scene either. But what I've seen out of both of these guys and what I've seen out of a guy, the former One Pride MMA lightweight champion, and that is Jeka Saragih, I'd say his wildness can definitely translate in a fight like this, and it's obviously won him all of these fights because he is so well-rounded, and again, he is at a height disadvantage in the majority of his fights, being the size that he is, but he can usually overcome that by having the power that he has, mixing up his strikes to all 3 levels, and then really kind of blending in his own grappling, and in a fight like this, I could see him having success there as well.
It's a very 50-50 fight, and that has to be said. And that's why I like this fight the most out of all the finales for these, because it is the most well-matched, if you will. Like, all the other ones seem to have one clear favorite, but this one could go either way, and I don't think anybody would be too surprised, because both guys are well-rounded. They both enjoy a brawl. It should be an exciting fight for the fans. I just think it's a good matchup all around.
Well, Jubli is the slight favorite in the matchup. Let us know who you have in the fight. We're going to have a look at the Tapology votes. Matt, surprised to us as they are to you. I know the Fight Night Picks fans on the poll that we had on Instagram at Fight Night Picks were siding with Jubli. So I'm going to say over under 67.5% Jubli.
I think they'll be under.
I think they were over that. Wow. 832 total votes, 78% Saragih, 80% by knockout. For the 22% that have Jubli, 70% by decision. So listen, like amateur hour, I'll bring it up on my phone and see what the fans had for a vote on this one. 65% Jubli on our Instagram page is what they went with. 78% Saragih over on Tapology, and Jubli is the slight favorite. So Matt, again, like we kind of set it up this way. Both guys are well-rounded in their own rights. One guy's a little bit wilder of a striker. Jubli is a powerful striker. He's got a good jab, and he throws that left hand a couple of different ways. He'll jab, but also throw it out there as a hook, so it keeps you thinking quite a bit. But his striking defense is very much, I move my core from the outside, and I keep my hands out there like I'm riding a chopper, like his West Coast custom. So who do you have in this matchup? Because it is a tough one.
It is a tough matchup. I do have the larger fighter, though. I guess I'm going to side with our voters on Instagram. I think Jubli just has the range factor. He is a good striker from the outside. I think the brawling is going to make this entertaining, though, and that's why it's such a hard fight to predict. Because either guy could land a big shot from the outside, win it early. Either guy could start to pull away later as the fight goes on. So I'm incredibly excited for this fight, but I do have Jubli.
I like Jubli in the fact that, again, once he gets it down to the mat, he really controls your upper body because he's bigger than a lot of the guys he's fought too, or they look like they're kind of moving up in weight, and he's able to hold them down, threaten with head and arms, threaten with like grabbing their arms, going Kimura arm lock. I don't think Saragih's going to have those problems, and I can see Saragih sweeping at a lot of those bad positions, and I think the car crash striking also lends credence to a Saragih win. So I'm going to go with Indonesia's Jeka Saragih. Regardless, Indonesia can claim that they have a champion UFC fighter. Matt going with India's Anshul Jubli to get the win. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have in this matchup. The lightweight tournament finals. Make sure you check out our fighting handbook video. It's the road to, there it is. It's the road to the UFC with the fighting handbook with Fight Night Picks. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.